This video will serve as an introduction to polynomial division. To start though, we're going to review long division of numbers. So in this case we have 2,457 divided by 3. The 3 we call the divisor, the 2457 is the dividend, and then what we will obtain is our quotient. To start with, we will take our divisor and see how many times it goes into the first two digits of our dividend, 24. So 3 goes into 24 8 times. Once we have a term in our quotient, we'll multiply it by the divisor. So we will do 8 times 3. 8 times 3 gives us 24. After we complete that multiplication, we will always subtract. So 24 minus 24 comes out to be 0. After we complete the subtraction, we will bring down the next term in the number, which is 5. Once we bring that number down, we will see how many times our divisor, which is 3, goes into 5. Well, 3 goes into 5 one time. In terms of quotient, multiply by divisor, so 1 times 3 gives us 3. Write it down there. We subtract. 5 minus 3 is 2. Bring down the next term, which is 7. And then we ask ourselves how many times 3 goes into 27. That would be 9 times. And then 8 times divisor, 9 times 3 is 27. Once again, we subtract. We get a value of 0 there. That value of 0 we call the remainder. All right, all of the examples that we will look at today will involve a remainder of 0. So now if we move on to looking at polynomials, you can see that our divisor, x plus 1, is a binomial, so that will make life a little bit more difficult. And then we have a dividend of x cubed plus 2x squared minus 5x minus 6. To start with, we're going to take the lead term of our divisor, x, and see how many times it goes into x cubed. Well, when I say x going into x cubed, that's essentially saying x cubed divided by x, so that's equal to x squared. I will put that x squared up in my quotient right above the 2x squared. We will line up the degrees there. You can see the x squared lines up with the 2x squared. Once I have a term in my quotient, I can multiply that by the divisor. In this case, the divisor is x plus 1, a binomial. We're going to do x squared times x to give us x cubed, and x squared times 1 to give us plus x squared. However, if we remember from our previous examples, we are performing subtraction here. So when I do x cubed minus x cubed, that will drop out. Then 2x squared minus x squared is x squared. Now I can bring down the negative 5x. And we are once again asking ourselves how many times the lead term of our divisor, which is x, goes into this x squared. So again, how many times does x go into x squared? Well, that would be x times. So we will put a plus x up here in our quotient. We have a term in our quotient. X will multiply that by our divisor, x plus 1. So x times x plus 1 is x squared. X times 1 gives us plus x. Once again, though, we do have to subtract. So when we subtract x squared minus x squared, that drops out. The left part of that should always drop out if we do this properly. So that's a way for you to check yourself. And then negative 5x minus an x would be negative 6x. After we subtract, we can bring down our final term. So this is minus 6. And once again, we ask ourselves how many times does x go into negative 6x? Well, x going into negative 6x means we would be left with negative 6 when we perform that division. So we have minus 6 up in our quotient. And now we would do negative 6 times x plus 1. So this would be minus 6x and minus 6. Once again, we are performing subtraction. So negative 6x minus a negative 6x would be 0. A negative 6 minus a negative 6 would be 0. So we would be left with a remainder of 6, leaving this as our answer. Now what I would like you to do is try to complete this problem on your own. So pause this video. Okay, this is what you should end up with. All right, you can check to see if you worked out the problem properly. The next type of division that we are going to look at is called synthetic division. Synthetic division sort of like, synthetic means fake, so it's kind of like division, but it cuts out a lot of the crap, to be perfectly honest. So as we look at a problem like this, we can use synthetic division. And what we would do, again, is look at our divisor. And we have that x plus 1 there. What I'm going to utilize is the constant term in the divisor. And I'm going to take the opposite of that sign that the constant has. So this says plus 1. I'm going to use negative 1. And then this is just creating the structure for synthetic division. After I do that, what I will do is look at the dividend and write out the coefficients of the dividend. So the coefficient here is 1. I'll write that out. Then I have a coefficient of 2, negative 5, and negative 6. And now I can create my quotient. To start the process of synthetic division, I bring down the 1. Now this right here represents what we'll have for our quotient. So just like before, when we get a term in our quotient, we multiply it by our divisor. All right, that represents our divisor. So we would do negative 1 times 1. This becomes negative 1. We put that here. Then we will take this 2 and the negative 1 and add them together. So 2 times negative 1 gives us 1. Once we have a term in our quotient, we multiply it by our divisor. So I'm going to do negative 1 times 1, and that will give me negative 1. Once again, I will add these terms down. So negative 5 plus a negative 1 is negative 6. And then once again, when I have my term in the divisor, I will multiply the negative 6 times our negative 1. So negative 6 times negative 1 gives me positive 6. And once again, I will add these two terms down. Negative 6 plus 6 gives us 0. So what our solution will be, these three terms, or these three values, will represent the coefficients and the constants of our quotient. So in this case, our constant term will be negative 6. The next term will be, I have a degree of 1, so that'll be x, and we'll have 1x. And then it's positive. And then the term with this 1 right here, the coefficient in front of x squared. So basically what we're doing, we start off with a degree of 3. Now we're down to a degree of 2. All right, when we divide through by this value. So it's just going to end up being an answer of x squared plus x minus 6. Okay? So that's our procedure of synthetic division. We won't always be able to use that, but we will use it quite often. There will be cases where we have to use long division. I know synthetic may seem a little bit easier and quicker, but we won't be able to use that all of the time. So what I would like you to do next is try to complete this problem using synthetic division. Remember, the value that you're going to start with, it'll be the opposite of this for your divisor, so you will start with positive 2. So go ahead and pause the video and see if you can come up with the correct answer for this one. Okay, here is the work and the answer. And that is all for this video.